We've got our horizon line. Let's put our vanishing point around the center. Now we're going to draw our equal-sided box, and it's best if you use your ballpoint pen. Start with your one corner. Take the width that you want, and turn it the other way. And that'll give you an equal-sided box. But even after that, now remember, use your whole arm. Don't just use your fingers. Use your whole arm. So there's that, and here's that, so it looks about the same. Now, as I mentioned, with 1-point perspective, this is our vanishing point, you have 3 types of lines. You have horizontal lines, vertical lines, and perspective lines. So once you have your box, you need to use that vanishing point to figure out how much smaller it's going to appear a little further away, because we want to draw back on our box. So you take each of your corners to your vanishing point, and remember, you can draw phantom lines. Don't draw any line at all until you're ready, until your hand, you have the muscle memory to get the line in the place you want it to go. That's the beauty of using a ballpoint pen. You can go very lightly and then begin to firm up when you have something you think is correct. And we should do the inside. Now this is called drawing through. You're drawing as if this is a box made of glass, that you can see through it. So that way we'll have our box. Now, as I was mentioning, we need some way of figuring out how to make it an equal-sided box in terms of the depth. And what I found is that if I divide this front part in half, just make an X, this X is really important. It's how you can find out so many things and do so many things. So if I want this to be, that's the center right there where that makes the X joins, that makes the center. So now I know what half the height is and half the width is. And what I've discovered is that in this position, in relation to the eye level, if I take less than half the box, just less than half, there's less than half, and turn it the other way, that will give me what I need. So remember what we're doing. We're trying to represent that. If I were to take that and turn it this way, look how far back it would go, and I'd end up with a rectangle. So I've got this now. Bring it across, but only bring it across as far as the next perspective line. And that'll give you an equal-sided box. Now how you can tell is that it's sitting down, it's behaving itself. If it were popping up, then it wouldn't be right. Now, this line is this line at a distance. And we need this line now. So I just make it the same way. It's on the same perspective line. I just bring it up. But where do I stop it? You stop it where the next perspective line interrupts it. Because that's how you drew this line. You drew it where that perspective line interrupted it. And then we need this line up here. We need this line. And it's a perfectly horizontal one, because that's how we drew the one at the front. So then you have that one. And it occurred where these two collided, where the perspective line and the corner collided. So that's where they go. And then this part should line up with this part, so I'm a little off. You can make your corrections too, you see, when you see this. So this should be here. Now that corner should be lining up. So we've got a equal-sided box in perspective, and you can see now how you would be able to draw your ellipse in it. Now, there are lots of diagrams in your slate content that will explain this circle technique again to you. So you can go in and watch that as well. Look at those as well. This is where you are. You're standing here. This is your eye level. And you're the one making the drawing. So you're telling the viewer that this is the best position from which to look at your box that you have to show them, this wonderful box. So that you know that's where you are. And you're well in front of it, aren't you? You're way, way in front of it. And it's in back there. We can bring this over, so just slide this over. This is a nice technique to use. Just slide this over, and we can slide this over. Now, you're going to be doing that here as well. See, you can just slide this over, slide that over, slide that over, if you're happy with the first one. Okay, so we found the middle, and the middle is where the vanishing point is. So you can bring that over with a scrap of paper. There's our middle. And the next thing we did, we know there's the back. The next thing we did was take these corners to the vanishing point. Now, it's good practice to always be aware of the hidden parts, because when we want to put shadows in, we need those. So there are my hidden parts, but there's my box. And with the pen, just go a little darker and use your whole arm. I don't know, it may not be comfortable to use your whole arm when you're on an angle, but do your best to use the whole arm. And that makes sense, doesn't it? I'm standing, the box is right in front of me, and all I can see is the top. We're going to look at your 3 pieces of communication that are extremely valuable. The first is a floor plan. So let's look at something. We'll draw a little table, and we'll make it square. Our theme is square today, cubes. So after you've decided on a width, then give it a depth. So that's my width. Then you give it a depth. So we'll do a little square table, but we want to see what it would look like if we just looked straight down on top of it. And that's what floor plans are. They're as if you cut the wall at 5 feet and you hover over everything at the same time, just looking directly straight down. So that's the top of our table. we'll do a side view, and it just so happens to be square along the side view too. So I can actually drop this down to do this part. And when you look at it from the side, this is called an elevation. So our table is going to have some thickness. And it's also going to have a pedestal leg. So let's find where the middle is so we can put that leg in the middle. And right where the X is, the center of the X is, that's the center for our table. We're going to have a little base on it, like that. And you're always thinking symmetry, so you try to put this the same distance on either side. And it's going to have a nice little sculpty thing here, little sculpty. And keep watching your symmetry. Now, we don't show any perspective here whatsoever. Top has nothing, but let's put something. You never put a table in without putting things on top of it. So we'll have a vase of flowers, maybe at least a vase of flowers. We'll try putting a book on top or a magazine or something, but we'll see if we can do that. Now put it at the same angle as this. Maybe it's sitting here, a book. And we're putting it at a 45-degree angle, because this is 45. It's bisecting a 90-degree angle right in half. So it's going to be at a 45. And our vase is going to have a tiny bottom and a bigger waist. So we've got that looking like that. We're going to put this below eye level, so we can put our eye level up fairly high. Now use your whole arm. I don't know if you've noticed, but if you go too fast, you get a curve. So you kind of go a little slower. We're going to look at this from the side, so let's put our vanishing point over to the right again. That's our VP, and this is our eye level. So you're standing over here to make your drawing. And you're well in front of the table. It's in front of you, so it's sitting out in front. Our table is in front of us, so we want to make our equal-sided box out here. And once you have this, we want it well below eye level, because the more below eye level it is, the more of the top we're going to see. So let's take our height and make it the width as well. And then we use our vanishing point. So don't press hard, just do it very, very lightly and use your whole arm. It also makes sense to stop and look at your box, even though we measured it with the piece of paper, and make sure it looks like an equal-sided box to you. Because we can be a little off. We have to keep looking. I always forget to do that myself. Now, y'all remember we do our half. We find the middle. And no one believed me last time, but remember you have to do less than half. A little bit less than half. And turn it sideways. And then from there, you're just trying to find the same box, but smaller at that distance, that particular distance. So I want this line, so I go up to the perspective line, because that's how I drew that line. And I want the top line, so I go this way, because that's how I drew that top line. And then I've got this corner. Now, my corner lined up. What you'll notice, too, is your tendencies. My tendency is to go too high with this line. I know that. It happens to me every single time I do this. So now I'm compensating for that. And I believe the bottom. You'll notice that, too. There'll be one thing that you do all the time, and you can correct it. You just have to watch for it. And it'll happen, so you just watch for it. So we're going to put a thickness on. Our thickness for the top. And don't forget to use your vanishing point for this part, because we're looking for this to appear smaller than that. If it doesn't, then you know you're off. I'm going to make a little X at the bottom here to find the middle, because I want to find out where my pedestal is. So there's my center. Now, I've got this little fella on the bottom here, so I'm going to put that in a box too. So I decided how far I wanted to stretch its leg. And I just bring that across, and where it crosses my blue line, I go the other way, and I use the vanishing point. This is the device that you'll use so often for so many things. So it's gives you the ability to draw a box the same proportion, but smaller or larger. You could extend to make it larger. And now here's our center line. Remember we had the center line here. So we draw that up. And this time it doesn't matter. We're not going to see the result of it on the top of the table. It's hidden. Now, let's look at our legs a little more close up. If we look at our legs, we've got a box now to put them in. And we made an X so we know where the legs are going to go. We're just going to put 4 in to make it easier. So we're going to put an angle at the corners. Now this looked really simple, didn't it? But now it's getting a little more complicated. So let's make a little box here and pull it across. That'll be one leg. Make a little box here and pull it across. That'll make another leg. So see where the center is? You put that vertical. Where this one is, you come across, make a box, and come across. And make a box, come across. And that'll give us the correct place for our pedestal. And that's how it looks. It has a side and a top and a front. So a side, a top, and a front. Each leg has it. And the distant one is the smallest looking one of all. And these others are larger. And that one looks positively stretched out, doesn't it? But that's how it will look, and it'll keep it from looking too funny. So here we go. First job is to make a straight line, a little bit of a line. Then bring them up, make another line. So those boxes are actually in 2-point perspective, and they go to a vanishing point out there. But we don't have it as reference, so we're just eyeballing it. But it's at a 45-degree angle. And what we're doing is getting some practice at turning these boxes into furniture, which is what we'll be doing for our second assignment. So it's important that we start to think about it now and relate that to the geometric shapes and the cube as well, because everything we draw is going to come from a cube. And about halfway was where we had that little round dot. It's about halfway in the whole thing. So bring that across. Bring it back. Now, this table is below eye level, so if there's some detail on this, it would roll under because these are more beautifully shaped usually too. They kind of round up at the end, and you could just round them up. And then we could find the middle of our table on the top. And that will be where our vase is going. Keep an eye on your symmetry. So if you put a vertical line down the center, that'll be great. Maybe we'll make it slightly different than the table leg, the pedestal. When it comes to putting your hatching in and mapping your shadows, you'll start with everything being in pencil first. And at home, remember, you can use your ruler. You should use your ruler. You actually have to use your ruler. But you're going to choose a point for where the light source is hitting the floor. Remember, it isn't the light itself. The light itself is way, way, way up above. But this is where it's hitting the surface that the box is sitting on. And what you're going to do is take each of the four corners that are sitting on the surface and project this dot through them to get the right angle on your shadow. Even do the ones here that are hidden, because you never know, they might be important for what we're doing, and this is going to be important for what I'm doing. If you're using pencil crayon like this, maybe use your blue pencil, because that can erase. So, you see, I've got this angle, I've got this angle, this angle. This one is going out like that, all from that little point. Now, because this now is the shadow for this vertical line, the shadow for it is here. But it ends, so I have to choose a place for it to end. If you go back and watch these videos, they'll show you that the light is way up there, though. And what we're using as a point is way down here. That's what we're using. But to get the real precise angle, you'd be using the light source too to project through the top corners, not just the bottom. Now we've decided. So because we're looking for the shadow for this line, we have to draw it the same way. And we drew it using the vanishing point. So that's how you have to draw this. You have to use your vanishing point. Remember, you can do phantom lines before you actually draw a line. Okay. So this now, this whole square, is the shadow for that side of the box. And then where this projection hits the perspective line, I go the other way. Now, how do I do that? I look to see what shadow it's for, and it's the shadow of this line. And I drew that one as a perfect horizontal. So this has to be a perfect horizontal. So that's my shadow shape. And your outside lines, you can use your 0.7 for your outside lines. And remember, you're using your rulers. In class, we're not. So that's my outside line. And all of those hidden lines are going to stay there. But they're going to stay in pencil. And you can cross your corners. Corners look more accurate. If they're a little crossed over, they look more squared up. So don't be afraid to do that if you like that. There's my box. And now, to fill the shadows in, the hatching, use the skinniest pen you have in the package. Now, all hatching is vertical lines, and you can use your ruler side by side. And the closer you put them together, the darker they look. Now, in this situation, the light is way high above, so this surface is all lit up. So I don't put any hatching there. But this part is in the light because this is all lit up down here, remember? It's all lit up. It's in the light, but it's oblique to the light. It's not facing the light. It's at a vertical angle, so it's not facing the light. So it's not bleached out. So I'm going to have hatching here. Just single lines that I put the same distance apart. You can use your ruler. On the videos, I have to move very fast, so my hatching is a disaster. But yours is going to be beautiful. You're going to take your time. So leave lots of time for this. This looks like it's simple and you'll be done in a minute, but you really do need to take your time with your hatching. And so if you're hatching with your set square, it would be better for you to start with, whether you're left or right-handed, start with the opposite side. So it would be better to slide along this way, wouldn't it? So that your set square doesn't mess up the line you just made. Okay, and then on this side, I can go all the way down to my shadow, and you can put a line on your shadow. We never do this when we're doing our marker rendering. We never outline our shadow. But here you can outline a bit if you like. And this would come all the way down. And then we'll keep on going. And now we have to make it darker because this is the shadow side. So we have to go at a diagonal now. So this is cross hatching. Oops. So you see why we use just a skinny pen for this. Because it can get pretty heavy. And you cross over this part. I could have been doing the whole thing. I wasn't thinking. And it's okay if your pen leaves a little blob at the start. I don't know why, but that somehow looks a little attractive when you... Yeah. And that's not dark enough. So we've got to go over again this way. Now, these are more formal drawings, but if we were doing our sketches, we'll go back and do our table. You'll see, you can do this very fast, and it gives everything some oomph. And if that's not dark enough, then we can do the same lines again, just bringing them closer together. So we can now go back to doing more verticals. Now, the place that's the darkest is right here at the top, because the bottom is getting light that's bouncing up from the surface that's all lit up. So this part up here is the darkest. I don't think we did any of them to the vanishing point, did we? So we can still go this way. See? So there's an ability to make even a little variation in the shadow, but the darkest part is this part, the cast shadow. It's the complete absence of light because the object is blocking it. And it's darkest right at the start here, and then as it goes back, it's not quite so dark. But they're all supposed to be the same weight of line, and they don't taper. They don't go like that. They're solid. You do it deliberately and solidly, all the same weight. That's why the pigment liners are really nice for that. If we put the same kind of lighting on it as this, and we put our hatching in, we're going to put our hatching on the front and our cross hatching on the side. If we were to put our shadow in, now our shadow is going to be made by putting our dot over here and going through. This time we're going to go through the center. If you can remember where your center is, we'll go through our center on the bottom. My pencil's kind of dull, so I should be... There's my center. We'll balance our shape. So we'll bring this knobby part here. There's our knobby part. And we'll let it go like that. And then we'll put a box for the top and call it done. So we have to use our vanishing point. And we can't let it get too... now there'll be shadow all under here. And shadow all under here. And then there's the shadow for the pedestal. And there's the shadow for the tabletop. So when we fill that in, if it were a round table, we'd put a round top here. And you ask yourself, is it sitting on the floor? If it's not, then your box is no longer a cube. It's no longer a... And this part will be in shadow. And it'll be crosshatched, won't it? I'm making these lines a little darker so you can see what happens if you go very dark with your cross-hatching. It looks a little distracting, doesn't it? So it's better when it's thinner, but just so you can see. And don't forget your outside lines are thicker. And even our pedestal, it's shaped like the cylinder. So it's going to have a shadow down one side of it as well. And this just has the simple patching without any crossing over. This often looks a little odd though if you don't put them close enough together. So these are probably spread a little too far apart. And this is a little shadow underneath. So underneath you always hit a little harder because you could round these out. Something we forgot to do was put our person in here. These are some choices that you have when you do your sketch figures. They can be floaty head people or square head people, but they're very simple as you see. And we could start her, we're going to have her eye on the eye level. And we're going to, now where her feet end up, it doesn't matter. She's going to be correct wherever. She looks like a carrot in a way. You can think of her as a carrot. Ooh, she's got a short, sassy skirt on. She's coming to dinner. Now, the positioning of her feet says that she's just a little bit in front of the table, or a little bit lining up with it. So she's about the right size. So that's not too bad. I think we did pretty good in terms of sizing it. It would have been better to put her in first, maybe, then size the table to her, but she's doing her job now. She's showing us. My vase of flowers has kind of run away from me, though, a little bit in terms of size.